One of the best parts about being at winter meetings is getting the opportunity to talk about the Cubs with the guys that cover the Cubs every day. Coming up, we've got Patrick Mooney from The Athletic. Glad to have you guys here. Let's get this going. But before we do anything else, make sure you like and subscribe. Be part of the Cubs baseball channel. With Chad Anderson, it's great to have Patrick Mooney. I'm Mick Gillispie from the world of baseball, the winter meetings. How you been, Mooney? And how's your winter meetings been so far?
Awesome. It's been great to see you this week and see lots of different people in the baseball industry. It was a little kind of boring, I would say, not the showstopper we were hoping for, but all in all, a good week.
When are the Cubs going to sign Shohei Ohtani?
Is never an answer. I don't know when he I guess the Cubs aren't saying they're formally out, but I think as you talk to people here, any sort of momentum or buzz has evaporated. It seems like, in terms of connecting the Cubs and Ohtani, and I think that is probably the biggest takeaway here, of certain options narrowing for the Cubs. Not saying the Cubs were like a lock to do any of these things this winter, but it certainly appears like Ohtani is trending in the direction of the Dodgers, or I guess away from Chicago. The Yankees have been working on a trade for Juan Soto, and giving up prospects and paying Soto whatever it is, $30 million through arbitration, is not really like the Cubs' style. And then I'm not hearing a lot of momentum in terms of the Cubs and Yamamoto. So, and the Cody Bellinger plan all along was, from the Cubs' perspective, was to let Scott Boras do his thing and wait and see if another owner steps in with a monster deal, and if not, try to re-engage later in the winter. And as you guys know, it's not a great free agent class in terms of hitters, and Cody Bellinger is a former MVP, coming off a Comeback Player of the Year award, with a lot of skills that are in demand at a time when there are several other big market teams who are desperate to make a splash.
What would be your guess on who the Cubs are targeting primarily if indeed Shohei doesn't work out, which it does seem that way. And it seems like he's kind of the first domino that everyone's waiting to fall before other deals happen, except unless you're in Yankee pinstripes. They've made it pretty clear that their target has been Juan Soto this entire offseason with a trade. But in your opinion, with all the names out there and the Cubs seem to be linked to everybody, what's the first name for the Cubs that's going to fall?
I don't know about a first name in terms of timing, but there's no doubt that the Cubs have laid some groundwork here on the pitching side. They've talked to the Rays about Tyler Glasnow. Rhys Hoskins all along has made sense on a Bellinger Boras style pillow contract. Hoskins and Kyle Schwarber are extremely close, and my understanding is that Hoskins loves the idea of Chicago and the Cubs, in part because of Schwarber's glowing reviews, and we know Boras is open to these 1-year type deals for a playoff-proven power hitter coming off a major knee injury. I think the Cubs just have so many holes to fill, and they have like the trade chips to do what they want. They have good payroll flexibility. So like how we let off the show, I'm not trying to lower expectations in terms of like, oh, like you're not going to try and build a 90-win team. Like no doubt, like missing the playoffs 4 years in a row will be unacceptable. You just hired arguably the best manager in the game, certainly now the highest paid manager in the game. But I think Jed Hoyer explicitly said this today, like we're not just banking on internal improvements here. Like we're going to have to go out and get some offensive firepower. And I think if you're a Cubs fan, I would totally understand why you'd be disappointed by the tone of this episode thus far, and certainly frustrated by the pace. We all come to these meetings, or you check your phone, like hoping for big news, and that has not happened thus far. But we got a long way to go here.
So the Cubs obviously have enormous expectations from the fans now. And it all happened in the window of, what was it, like November 1st through November 5th, somewhere like in there, that 5 to 7 day window. Cubs fans went from heartbroken 30 days prior to, oh my God, we just paid out for a manager that only means we're going to go nuts in free agency and trading and the winter meetings and all this stuff. But fans, as you know, they get a little out of whack here and there. So what is, I guess, if you're looking at it, what should be acceptable for fans? Or is there a way to gauge like a win-loss in this offseason for the Cubs?
I'm a big believer. Like it's not my place to tell fans like what to feel. Like Cubs charge, if not the highest ticket price in baseball, it's right up there. And Chicago is a huge market, and this fan base has sustained this team for well over a century. And we see just the enormous rise in franchise valuations over the years, and especially since winning that World Series. We see all the construction around Wrigley Field. Like there's, if you're a fan, you should expect the Cubs to be in on all these big names, and they, have explored a ton of different possibilities. And I think with Counsell, like, no doubt he changes kind of the outlook of your offseason and where you think you can go with things. But I still believe if David Ross was still the manager, the Cubs would still be trying to make big deals or, kind of put the pedal down in terms of free agency. I mean, that's what they've been building for this moment here. And it's just more of a, status check in terms of like, how does Jed Hoyer operate? Like, he's not someone who just kind of jumps out in front and sets the market with free agents and trades. I mean, you saw it last year with Dansby Swanson, who turned out to be a really nice foundational piece for the Cubs. And that 7 and 177 was probably far beyond their comfort zone, when the 22 season ended, but compared to the other contracts out there, was pretty reasonable and also a very good fit for what they needed. So we were joking about, the Cubs always, say these things of like, well, we're not trying to win the off season, we're trying to win the regular season, or, leaving the winter meetings. It's like, we're probably only in like the third inning of our off season. And they do have, they're just not stuck. And if we had this conversation a couple of years ago, it would have been like, oh, they don't have a lot. Baseball operations does not have a lot of money to spend this offseason, or the farm system does not have a lot of talent that can be moved in trades, or even their major league pieces are not at the high point of their value or all that desirable to other teams. So I do think there's something to being patient and being disciplined, but that doesn't change, the standard of what Craig Counsell said when he was hired and what David Ross said at the end of what was a pretty surprisingly decent season. Of the standard is winning World Series, and the Cubs have a lot of work to do to get there, and they're well aware of that.
We've heard Christopher Morell's name mentioned, much to the chagrin of the Cubs, that he could be potentially traded, right? Pete Alonso is a name that was linked. Now maybe for Tyler Glasnow of the Rays. What are you hearing on that front? And would you be surprised if Morell ended up with the team? What would you do, or would you see them doing with him defensively if he comes back in a Cubs uniform?
I mean, the Cubs have no interest in trading Christopher Morell for a 1-year rental player in terms of, a Glasnow deal. I do think it's interesting that Craig Counsell comes in with a fresh set of eyes and a lot of experience in being creative and using versatile players. I asked Jed Hoyer that question, does Counsell kind of impact Morell's future here? And he maybe didn't go quite that far, but he did say that Craig Counsell reminds me a lot of Joe Madden as someone who can take the pieces and values versatility. And the Cubs wanted Morell to play first base in winter ball. They don't control the lineup, but he has been doing work before games in that, and he's also doing work at first base before games, and also moving around to different positions during games. And I do think Counsell saying, Christopher Morell has forced his way into the lineup, he has to be on the field, is telling. We don't know all the subtext of what Counsell says. I don't know him well enough to do that. As you guys know, at a certain point, you can read between the lines a lot better with certain longtime Cubs officials. We're not quite there yet with Counsell, but I think the Cubs certainly will listen to anything. Christopher Morell has a lot of value, but ultimately that could come with the Cubs.
Yeah, met Craig Counsell today. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
Saw him yesterday.
When you're looking at all the young players that the Cubs have, some of them are trade bait. Some of them are guys who have been on the major league roster, whether it playing in a lot of games or just coming off the bench. Which pieces do you see being on the field or being a part of the opening day roster making the biggest impact to start next season? Whether it's arms or position players.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't think Pete Crow Armstrong will be the opening day center fielder. I don't think Matt Shaw will be like the opening day third baseman, or that Cade Horton will, start the year in Chicago. But I think those are three names of guys that could impact the big league team as soon as next season. Guys have to stay healthy. Guys have to make adjustments and improvements, but those guys are very much on the radar here. And, I'm really interested to see how some of these pitchers develop. I think the Cubs have made nice strides in that area, but anyone watching last September knows it's not good enough. That bullpen was worn down during the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You can quibble with some of David Ross's decisions, but ultimately I think that comes down to roster construction and the overall health of the farm system. There just wasn't that pipeline that should be there if you kind of take the Cubs at the word of all. There's a lot of how great things are with this pitching infrastructure, and it's a lot better than it was several years ago. And there's better stuff and talent, but in terms of execution at the major league level, there was a lot to be desired. And I think there will be some reinforcements made this offseason, both in the bullpen and in the rotation.
Last question for you. Now that we're kind of, a month out of the Craig Counsell hire, David Ross being fired as manager, what are your thoughts on it? Because no one really saw this coming. And what do you think that what do you think the impact of this move is going to have?
Yeah, I mean, the timing obviously surprised me. Like, I thought, as this team was collapsing in late September, this is professional sports. And when stuff like that happens, people are put under a much sharper, harsher microscope or spotlight, whatever you want to call it. But certainly the last day of the season in Milwaukee, when the owner of the team says David Ross is our guy, and Jed Hoyer does his end of season press conference and explains, really backs Rossi big time. And, David Ross is doing his job pretty much up until the day he's fired. I mean, the Cubs are making adjustments to his coaching staff. He's talking through plans. Like, I mean, stunned.
Have you talked to him?
I've sent text messages. I've texted with him, but he has not, did not want to do or did not jump at my request for an interview. And look, I mean, David Ross was, very good to deal with. I think
still well liked and well respected.
Yeah, I think what he's good at is really hard to do and hard to find. I think the fact that that team kept playing hard, both in the second half of 2022, when they were 10 games under in June this year, I think he does a lot of what the Cubs want in their manager. It's just hard to not be tempted if you're the Cubs when Craig Counsell is out there. And, he's, has a longer track record. He's proven in ways that David Ross is not. And I don't think every organization would have done what the Cubs did. But there is a urgency here now, and just the fit with Counsell. I think there are only a few places that would have really intrigued him like this. That would have fit what he wanted professionally and also just personally, being close to home in Wisconsin. And so just one of those things where a lot of different factors lined up in a way that, in retrospect, we probably should have seen coming.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, tell everyone about what you got going on and how they can read your work, including coverage of winter meetings and then the entire Cubs offseason.
Yeah, check us out on The Athletic. My colleagues Dave Sharma and I cover the team year-round. We'll be, at Cubs convention, spring training, keeping up with all the hot stove action once that actually happens.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Patrick, and man, can't wait to see what you write when the Cubs sign Ohtani. Take care.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. All right. Well, we had a great guest there, and we got to ask you about modern lending.
13 years in this mortgage crazy housing business that we call it, and fortunate enough to help over 10,000 families and $3 billion, which Mick would get Ohtani around 5 times.
Yeah.
So it would get about 5 Ohtanis is the rumor. So we've been very fortunate, very blessed. People are still refinancing. Rates have dipped in the last couple of weeks. Homes are being bought and sold. Don't always listen to them, to the media or the news. right there on the screen is chadanderson.info. That's my cell phone number as well. Glad to help. You can pick my brain, ask questions, even if it's not the right time. We'll still help you put a game plan together.
All right. And also, channel right now presented by the Tennessee Smokies. They won their first championship in 45 years. 45 years. And they're celebrating with great Cubs and Smokies gear at smokiesbaseball.com/team store. We'll keep the coverage coming from Nashville and winter meetings. Thanks for hanging out with us today, guys.